Welcome to Stochastic MLB Live Before Lock. I'm your host, Neil Orfield. You can find me on Twitter at PlayerQDFS. I'm here with Matthew Belman. You can find him on Twitter at FantasyTipsMatt. And the show is produced by JDK. You can find him on Twitter at Jordan Decline. I call him JDK because Josh didn't like that I called him that the other day. So I'm going with it from now on. Just call him Jordan JDK. This show is sponsored by Owner's Box, fantastic new DFS site. And if you use our links when you sign up at Owner's Box, you get a fantastic deal. We'll talk about Owner's Box a bit more later on. But first, got to apologize to Belman. He DM'd me yesterday to place blame on me for Nick Chubb's injury, Belman being a Browns fan, because I apparently spoke it into existence because I said maybe it was not the worst play in the world to play Jerome Ford. How are you doing today, Belman? What's the outlook for the Browns? Tell me about it.
You can't get by that easy. It wasn't just that you said that Jerome Ford might have been a good play. You laid out the exact scenario. Like, if Chubb gets hurt, he's the lead guy. You know what? Injuries happen in the NFL. Hate to see it happen to a guy like Chubb. Such a good player, such a good guy. Running back is easily replaceable in the NFL. It's funny, like before that happened, he had like 10 carries for 60 yards, something like that.
Yeah.
I was thinking to myself, if there's any running back that's worth like, not QB money, but like worth serious money, it's him. You could talk about a couple other guys too. Derrick Henry, certainly in that mold. He's that good. I happen to think that Ford is really good. I like our offensive line. Like, it comes down to Watson still. So disappointed we lost that game on top of it. Obviously, Chubb is the bigger, loss, but how do you lose that game? Like, Pittsburgh stinks. Pickett stinks. Like, they had one play on offense. It was like the Jets against the Cowboys. One big passing play. Otherwise they couldn't move the ball at all. Disappointing night, man. It's funny how week to week and how your sentiments can change for a team, like, based on 1 week. I was sky high on them going into this game, and now, like, Watson's got to really show something. And so, yeah, I'm on my soapbox there. I was close in saying that the Vikings had a chance to beat the Eagles. If that Jefferson, TD doesn't happen, they're right there. Big game against the Chargers this week.
Yeah, it's another tough matchup for the Vikings. It'll be a fun DFS game. I'm looking forward to watching it from a DFS standpoint because I imagine I'm going to have all sides of that game. Kind of hoping that Austin Eckler is out so that my best ball pick of Josh Kelly does work out in week 3 because it did not work out at all in week 2 despite having the workload. But I think it'll be in a better spot if he plays against the Vikings.
I don't know. It wasn't you, but I was listening to Lofty a little bit this morning, and he was talking about week 1, Kamara again is out, so Jamal Williams is the lead back against Tennessee. Week 2, Eckler's out. Josh Kelly's the lead back against Tennessee. Week 3, Chubb's out. Jerome Ford's Jerome Ford's the lead back against Tennessee. Tennessee has a big pass funnel defense. They have a good run defense. So interesting. Ford is an interesting talking point this week.
Yeah. Ford it will be interesting to see because now everybody, like, after seeing Josh Kelly fail cheap ownership, or cheap price tag, people are going to think, okay, well, we can't play Ford against that defense. So maybe it's a spot to go right back to it. Yeah, that'll be interesting. I haven't looked closely at the slate yet, but yeah, that'll definitely be a talking point throughout the year. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the Browns do this year. If Deshaun Watson can turn back the clock, if that team, I mean, they got Amari Cooper, they've got such a talented offense. Of course, it's a big hit to lose Nick Chubb, like arguably the best pure runner in the NFL. Yeah, you can't really replace that.
Watson's getting killed today, like on social media and Cleveland radio, talking about how like we wish they still had Baker. There's still some major Baker fans in Cleveland too that just don't like Watson. Yeah, he's got to show something. I mean, he has not looked like the old Watson in any of the 8 games he's played. I give him a mulligan for the first 6 last year. But like last night, you just needed him to be competent, and they probably win that game.
Right. It didn't look good.
You've got to show something this week.
Yep. Chuck G says, I feel like Neil is on every show now. They need to rename it Neil Before Lock. It does. It feels that way to me sometimes too. I'm just on, as far as Live Before Lock goes, I'm just on all of the main NFL Showdown slates, and this is the only Live Before Lock that I'm on for MLB anymore. But that is still four nights a week I am on the Live Before Lock shows. It is a bit much. Was it Sotek said, the first thing he thought of after the Chubb injury and when Jerome Ford went off was me talking about Jerome Ford. I didn't even feel like I just said, it's kind of a contingency plan. On a 2-game slate, you got to think about the backups. I said that I liked him better as a backup
than Tony Jones.
It was actually Chuba Hubbard. I said Tony Jones. I also, so that was my horrible. The worst thing I said was, no, I'm not playing Tony Jones. I don't think you need to go that far. And then of course he scores 2 touchdowns. But then I said I preferred Ford over Chuba Hubbard because
I didn't even hear
happen.
that part.
Yeah.
I heard you say you liked him more than Tony Jones.
Yeah, well, I liked him better than Tony Jones too, for sure.
And it was so funny that both those guys were the 2 highest scoring backs on the slate. Like
that was wild, man. What a wild 2-game slate. Yeah. Tony Jones, I don't think was even in the winning lineup, which is kind of nuts. Like he was probably the highest scoring running back. I guess I didn't double check that, but
probably because like no one played him.
Yeah, true.
I was thinking about one more thing that I wanted to mention to you because I heard you talk about it yesterday, like about playing your defense against, offensive players and stuff. How some might be like, no, if your defense, like, you have to throw all that out on showdown slates, 2-game slates. Like the scenarios can play out in so many different ways. You could have 2 0-0 games. You could have 2 50-50 games. Like you just have to throw out all that. Like, oh, if this, you know what I mean? Because
exactly.
I don't know. You get it.
It's similar to Showdown. You got to think weird on a 2-game slate. People don't think about all the different ways things could go. It's a different strategy on a 2-game slate than like even like a 4 or 5-game slate. It's pretty different. Mm-hmm. Chris Williams, our Apple guy, sent us a super chat. Kudos to you, Neil. Brandon Katz said your take was dumb on Amari Cooper last night, and I screenshot that, and he was in the winning lineup on the Showdown contest. Winner won $200K, and I only cashed because of your take. I appreciate you, Chris Williams. Yeah, I thought Amari Cooper was, probably my biggest stand last night. I think I said on the show he was going to be my biggest stand. I was going to be well over the field on Amari Cooper. He had a great game, put up 90 yards, but like
he looked good doing it.
If he either scored a touchdown or got 10 more yards, he would have been an absolute smash. He ended up being like a good play, but not like incredible. Pretty good. Yeah, he did. He looked really good. It felt like every time they threw him the ball, it was like that's going to be caught. Like he's clearly the best receiver on that team. Felt like I could have used him a little more and didn't look all that banged up. I mean, I know he's still hurt a little bit, but there were a couple times I thought, is he going to be out now for the rest of the game? Like looked like he was limping, but no. So worked out, but could have been a little bit better still. All right. You want to talk some baseball?
Let's get it.
All right, let's talk some baseball. Let's start with the pitchers, and let's start with the high end of pitchers. Man, we've got some good options on this slate. Let's just start with just the 5-figure pitchers. So we just have 3 5-figure pitchers, but all of them look fantastic. We got Spencer Strider against Philadelphia, 12,800 price tag. Blake Snell against Colorado, and Luis Castillo against Oakland. So 2 really juicy matchups and 1 just incredible strikeout pitcher. What are you doing with those 3 5-figure pitchers? Are you going well underweight to any of them? Are you locking any of them? How do you feel about these guys?
To me, Snell looks the best. He's the cheapest and in arguably, probably in the best spot against Colorado at home. You could always make the case for Strider because he's Spencer Strider. He's highest strikeout percentage in the world. He's got the worst matchup by far. He just saw Philly. Like, it's not even like, it's just a little bit of a worse matchup. It's clearly like the worst matchup. They're by far the best offense, like within this group. They're one of the best offenses in baseball. So that and the price tag makes it hard for me personally to get to Strider. And I like Snell more than Castillo. Now, Snell is like the prototypical, doesn't really matter like who he's facing. If he's on, he can get to anyone. If he's off, he'll get hit by anyone. We saw that in his past 2 starts. He faced the Dodgers in his last start. He was unowned. And the start before that was against another really good team. He was unowned.
I don't remember.
I can't remember either. I'll look it up when you're talking and I'm trying to not pay attention. So, Snell's the guy for me here. Obviously like he puts guys on base. So, a couple of bad pitches and he gets hit up, but there's just so much to like about him at this price point here. I think Snell's the top guy. I think you can make like realistic, arguments for Strider or Castillo below him. For me though, it's like clearly Snell and then those 2 guys. And I put Zach Gallen right in the mix with Castillo and Strider personally.
Okay. Yeah. So we Snell faced the Dodgers last time out in Houston the game before that.
Yeah.
So a couple really tough matchups there for Snell. He had 8 strikeouts in each of those games. In each of the past 5 games, he has had at least 8 or 9 strikeouts in each of the past 5 games. Yeah, he is so good. He's the cheapest pitcher of the group, and in arguably the best matchup. I mean, you think Colorado at home better than Oakland in Oakland?
I mean, I think they're so similar. Like if you said Oakland was better, if you said Castillo is in a better spot, I certainly wouldn't argue with you. You know what I mean? Like, it just comes down to they're both in really good spots. Snell is slightly better pitcher, and he's cheaper. That said, you do get a nice ownership discount on Castillo. A lot of people feel that way about, clearly Snell is the guy people are going to.
Yep. Yeah. But and it sounds like you say that Strider, it's difficult to get to Strider because of the price tag. So would you rank them Snell, Castillo, Strider? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, that's a dangerous game to play ranking when you're putting Strider third. I know that,
right?
But yeah, clearly all look very, very good, very playable. Do you think you're going to be like? Do you think you're going to have at least one of these pitchers in all of your lineups?
Yeah, I will. To me, like, it looks like Snell and, like I said, Gallen really stand out. Gallen's the cheapest out of all of them. I don't like that the roof is open in Arizona. It's hot there, but San Fran strikes out. Not like the greatest matchup in the world, but he's a guy with big upside. He's got a big time K rate. There's a lot to like about Gallen here, under 10K. So, like, right now, if I were making one lineup, it's Snell Gallen for me.
Snell Gallen, interesting. Okay, so let's move on down to that salary range. We do have Gallen fourth in our top two pitcher odds. Let's talk about all of the pitchers that have at least. Let's talk about every pitcher that is 8,500 or higher. So we've got Hunter Brown against Baltimore, Yusaka Kikuchi against the Yankees, Ryan Pepio against Detroit, Nathan Eovaldi against Boston, and Zach Gallen against San Francisco. Sounds like Gallen is your favorite. How about the rest of these guys? Do you have any interest in Eovaldi at 1% ownership, or Pepio against Detroit is getting 19% ownership? We have Kikuchi at 1%, Hunter Brown at 16%. So a couple like semi-chalk guys and a couple completely unowned guys in this range. Who do you like in this range? Who are you fading in this range, if anybody?
Gallen's the guy I like. I mean, the ownership's not really there. He's getting some love, as he should. He should be getting more, in my opinion. So, like, he's my guy here. I understand why Hunter Brown's getting some love. He was really good last time out. No Rutschman in the Baltimore lineup. I'm a little worried about his pitch count, though. Like, he was pitching a no-hitter last time out. They pulled him I can't remember how many pitches. It wasn't like he had thrown a ton. So I don't know. I'm a little skeptical of him here. He's been very hit or miss also. Like, not even matchup dependent. Like, you just never know what you're going to get with him. He's pitched more than he has at any point in his career so far. Always a little worried about those guys like this later on in the season. So, like, I get why Hunter Brown ownership at that price. It's just not for me. Pepio, similar for me here. Like, he's a little bit more expensive than Brown. I feel more comfortable with his pitch count. Good matchup at home against Detroit, but not as good of a matchup as Snell. He's not nearly as good of a pitcher as Gallen or those other guys up top. He's in that price range, so I'd rather just spend a little bit more and get to a gam. The guys that are getting no love, like Eovaldi, I don't really see how you can make a rational case to get there, except just looking at the top pitcher tool and being like the numbers say to get there. But he hasn't been good since he returned from the IL. We saw him pitch like 75 pitches last time out in less than 4 innings. So not sure how long he's going to pitch. No idea how efficient he's going to be. Like, I get it taking a shot in tournaments, but he's also priced up. So that one's really hard for me to get to. I'd play Kikuchi, probably in this range, just at the ownership discount. Our tools like him. He has similar top pitcher ranking as Pepio and Brown, getting like a 20th of the ownership. Kikuchi is the guy I like here personally.
All right, here's a question. So Bug Boy 3.0, who I believe is Josh Engelman's best friend, says, my guess is if Strider even sneezes, they'll pull him. Why stretch him out now? The Phillies can't catch them. The 1 seed is inevitable. Just seems like a place to exercise caution. Is that a concern for you at this point in the season? Are you worried that they're just not going to leave Strider out there because they don't really need to?
I mean, yes and no. Like, at 12-8, you do want that ultimate upside. So, like, I get why someone would be concerned about it. I'm not at that point yet, like with starters. Like, they're not going to send him out for like, a strenuous workload, because you're right, these games don't mean anything, but I still think he's going to see, assuming he's pitching well, like he'll still be Spencer Strider good, in my opinion.
Okay. Good to know. And then I got a question about Alex Cobb, whether he is a viable SP2, but I'm gonna throw it to you. I feel like you are more in tune at this point in the year. I'm not playing MLB every day anymore, so I'm a little bit not quite as in tune as I am, throughout the summer right now, with NFL kind of taking over my world. How do you feel about Alex Cobb? Let's just go everybody under 8,500. Let's open it up to the rest of the pitchers here. Who are your favorites? Who are you fading? How do you feel about these guys?
I think there's certainly guys you can make a case for. Cobb is fine, 5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, only 1% ownership. You can get guys like I mentioned Kikuchi, though, like who have even bigger leveraged scores than that. So I don't hate Cobb, but not a good matchup in Arizona. Like, I don't really see the appeal. Personally, I know he's getting more ownership, but Blackburn at home, about $1,000 cheaper, projects better than Cobb most places I've seen. So, I think on a projection basis, Blackburn's probably the guy there. Clark Schmidt, you could make a case for 7,300. I actually like the Toronto side against him, but we know Toronto, is righty heavy. Schmidt strikes out righty. So at 7,300, like I get it on this slate just because there really aren't, comfortable mid-range to cheap options that you feel, like I said, comfortable going to. But for me, like the drop off from the top 4 is so big that, there's no like crazy expensive offense I need to get to on this slate. I think that'll be a contrarian way to play. But personally, I'd rather spend up for pitching and find ways to, get some cheap bats to balance it out.
Okay, so you're primarily playing Strider, Castillo, Snell, Gallen. Those are your 4 main pitchers, and then outside of that, maybe here or there you get to somebody else, but like you're not really focused on any of the cheap guys.
Yeah, I'm only playing a few lineups tonight, and it might just be all Snell and Gallen.
Okay, wow, that's a stand. Just taking those 2, but yeah, I get it. I mean, they look great here. That makes sense. So not really loving any of these cheap options. Anybody else you feel that we need to talk about of the cheap pitchers?
No.
Okay, so pitching is just very straightforward. It sounds like tonight. And I mean, that's kind of what I was thinking coming is like these expensive guys are in great matchups. Snell at 10,600 is probably not as expensive as he should be against Colorado in San Diego. Luis Castillo, great matchup with Oakland, and then Spencer Strider is always a smash. So it's kind of in line with what I was thinking, but still good to hear that there's nobody we need to be playing among the cheap guys. Javier Assad, we've got with a 20%.
He was
chance.
The guy.
Okay.
I was going to say that, like you said that when you were talking.
Okay.
I was like, Assad, you can make a case for. He's under 6K. We have him as a 20% chance to be in a top 2 value pitcher, as you mentioned. The ownership's not really there, only getting about 6% ownership. So, yeah, I do think that, like, even over Blackburn, who I mentioned, like, I'd get to Assad.
What about Drew Rom? Had 7 strikeouts his last time out. He's had pretty mixed bag so far of results in his 5 major league starts, but last time out, 5 innings against Baltimore, 7 strikeouts, and he's cheap. Now he's got Milwaukee. Can you make a case there for Rom? Is he somebody, in a 150 set? Do you think that you would have more than the 4% ownership we have the field getting into Rom?
Why we only have him as from, and maybe I need to update. I see only like 1.5% getting there. Personally, I like to limit my pitcher pool.
Okay.
Yeah, I only have him as getting like 1.5%. Is that what you have?
I'm just refreshing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I refreshed and now it says 1.4%. So that did change since we started the show. Okay. So pretty low ownership to Rom, but you still, it's not low enough that you want to get there, or you'd rather just eat the chocolate pitcher, it sounds like.
Not even about eat the chalk. Like I like to personally how I play, even when I'm playing more lineups, I have a small pitcher pool.
Okay.
So there's a chance Rom could make it in there, but I do like the Assad play better. He's got about double the chance of being a top 2 pitcher. The ownership's there also. So to answer your question, yes, I do think you can make the argument for putting Rom in your player pool. If you have 5% of him, you're way over the field.
Right. And he's got that volatility that I like in cheap pitchers. Like I think more so in cheap pitchers, even than expensive pitchers, just having that volatility, the ability to put up 25, 30 fantasy points kind of interests me. Just throwing out some names, extending the conversation just so we make sure we cover all bases with all the other pitchers. But I'll
put it like this. Also, you asked me about all these pitchers. One of the, I'll even say like under 7K pitchers will outscore, one of the top 4 pitchers, at least one of them. in my opinion.
Okay.
Like, and that's just like how baseball works, right?
Right. True. We've got a lot of pitchers on the slate. There's a good chance that one of these
Yeah.
cheaper guys is going to, that is a good point. Do you have any concerns about like people funneling to the same teams? I think somebody in chat just kind of voiced that concern a little bit, that like people are going to be funneled to the same expensive pitchers. And then if you're going to cheap bats, like are they going to get more burned, the cheap bats, than we're anticipating because everybody's funneling to the same kind of build?
Yes, but there's a lot of cheap bats. So like, I'm not particularly worried about ownership except for in a couple places. The real like question and way to get different is like expensive bats won't be high owned. I do think that there's enough cheap bats on the slate with 12 games that like you can get different by playing cheap bats like that just aren't getting as much love as the more popular cheap bats that don't project as well. But paying down for pitching and spending up on offense is the real way to like get different on this slate, in my opinion.
Okay. Makes sense. All right. Well, I think that we have covered pitchers well enough. By the way, did I even say, I think I said it coming in, but if you haven't already hit that like button, please do hit that like button. Helps us out quite a bit if you can do that. And I should mention, if you haven't checked out our podcast channel, we are doing a lot of podcast exclusive content this year. So there are some shows that we don't even have on the YouTube channel. We've got Laffy and Ben Rasa are doing a half-hour podcast exclusive show. I know Laffy and Greg are doing a focus on, so it's Laffy and Rasa are doing focus on, I believe, single entry and 3-max contests. So they do a podcast exclusive on that for NFL. And then we have Laffy and Greg doing an afternoon only slate. So they take a look at the afternoon only slates for NFL. And I don't know what else. I know those shows are on there. I don't know what other content we have out there, but just for those, you should check it out because those you can't find anywhere else. It's only on the Stochastic podcast channel. So check it out if you haven't already done so. And I should also mention, if you don't already have the Stochastic avatar, you can find it at stochastic.com/avatar. That's your way to get into the Stochastic Hall of Fame. You download that Stochastic avatar, make it your avatar on both DraftKings and FanDuel, place in the top 3 of a contest with over 5,000 contestants, and tweet your win to Stochastic HOF, or you can email us if you don't have Twitter. Just make sure you got that screenshot with the avatar in there. You'll win a free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum, and you'll of course then get that shout out from Laffy in the Hall of Fame segment. You can only win that once per year, so keep that in mind. If you've already won, you can't win again for this year, but fantastic if you haven't already signed up for the podcast channel. All right, so we've already looked at pitchers. I guess we can move on and just talk about the stacks here, starting with top stack of the day. Actually, let's talk about owners. Let's talk about the chalk of the stack. So the highest owned stack of the day is the Cleveland Guardians against Alec Marsh in Kansas City. We've got the Nationals. So interesting top owned stacks. The Nationals, number 2, 11% projected ownership against Jose Urena and the White Sox. Those are our only 2 stacks that are getting double-digit ownership. What are you doing with those stacks, Cleveland and Washington?
Man, I don't understand like this Cleveland. Like they're projected as the top stack multiple places, not just us. So like you have to consider them the top stack, I guess. The ownership is just like, I don't know. It's too much for me here. We've seen all year Cleveland's not a team that hits home runs, which is what you need in DFS. Now, Marsh gives up home runs, so like it's a good spot in that regard. I don't think they should be ahead of like a bunch of these other teams. Personally, the ownership's too high for me. Like this is probably a spot where like me knowing too much or thinking I know too much, if you will. Like I can't get away from picking on Jose Urena. Like he's awful. There's no way he should be still pitching in the major leagues. I know Washington's not good. Like the ownership's there. So like I don't mind using some Washington with a team that's not going to get much love. And that's probably how I'm going to play it. That is how I'm going to play it. We'll get to like the other teams I like that aren't getting love, but I like Washington more than I like Cleveland here. I understand like the top stack tool would say I'm wrong there. And, the ownership is probably, given the tools, like, I don't know, the ownership is right on line. Cleveland and Washington, like they have similar ownership given their top stack percentage. There's more negative leverage with Cleveland. I don't know. I can't get away from picking on Jose Urena. I can't do it. I can't.
So I'm saying we have 19% going to Cleveland and only 11% going to Washington. So we have a little bit of an ownership disparity between Cleveland and Washington.
Well, given their top stack percentage, though, it's about the same.
Oh, gotcha. So they're both over-owned relative to their top stack odds. Yeah, that is true. I will say with the Nationals, so you're saying you like the Nationals, they do have a 13% chance of being the top value stack. So from that perspective, you could argue that there's some positive leverage in terms of top point per dollar stack at the very least. So if you want to make that case, they actually look okay in the tools from that perspective also. But yeah, from an overall top stack perspective, only a 5% chance of the Nats being the top stack at 11% ownership. Still look very playable given the value stack odds. So you prefer Washington to Cleveland. I think that makes sense. I think clearly both in play, but go ahead.
Definitely both in play. Cleveland's a top stack, like I said, in multiple places. But for me, and like I said, this is probably a case where, my preconceived notions are getting in the way. I never play teams like Washington here that are getting too much love. They're not middle of the pack, but they're close to the middle of the pack in top stack percentage, yet they're top 2 in ownership. Those are teams I avoid, but I cannot get away from picking on Jose Urena, at least pieces. He's that bad. He doesn't strike anyone out. The Nationals are a team that already makes contact. Sure, he could pitch decent here, like he's shown it in the past, but I'm going to trust that, kind of like last night with the White Sox, who we had projected to be way overowned. They came in a little bit less owned. I think they come in a little bit higher owned here, given how they performed, given how the pitcher for Washington looked last time out.
Yeah.
And Washington's ownership is a little bit suppressed. Now I'm probably just trying to tell myself that as more of a reason to make me feel better about playing them. But like I said, you can play some chalk even if they're overowned, especially if you balance it out with players or teams that aren't getting love.
I don't think there's anything wrong with just playing who you want to play. It sounds like you want to play them. You should just play the teams you want to play. I mean, you don't need to justify it, right?
I mean,
at the end of the day, we're trying to play the teams we think are going to put up the most points, right?
I mean, and still, it's not like they have a 0% chance to be in the top stack. They're still way higher than they normally are. They're right. It's all jumbled today. There's not even a team with a 10% top chance with top stack percentage. So you move a percentage point here or there, and all of a sudden they're in the top 3 and they look even better, even though the ownership's already there. But the ownership is there. But even yesterday, we saw with Milwaukee, the top of the lineup gets a lot of love. The bottom doesn't. I do not mind playing bottom of lineups because honestly, you need those guys to get on base in order for the top of the lineup to get more at bats. And the ownership discount is just too much for me most of the time in baseball.
I don't know what you mean. Eric Lindquist says, come on, Neil. I don't think that is our Eric Lindquist. There's been somebody who's made their name Eric Lindquist for some reason. I don't understand the bit there, but it did remind me. Maybe he's saying, come on, Neil, to remind me. If you guys haven't already wished our own Eric Lindquist happy birthday, he turned 40 today. Go on Twitter, wish Eric a happy 40th birthday. Happy to have him join me in the 40-year-old club. Very excited to add Eric to the 40-year-old team. So go make sure you wish Eric a happy birthday if you haven't already done so at Eric Lindquist on Twitter. Okay, that is what this Eric wanted from me, is to remind people that it's Eric Lindquist's birthday. So go give him a birthday shout out on Twitter. Happy 40th to Eric. All right. So we've talked about Cleveland, Washington, the White Sox. Did you go into Milwaukee at all? They're among our top stacks as well, going up against Drew Rom. And as I mentioned, Drew Rom, a very volatile pitcher so far in his MLB career. Does that make you give you some interest in Milwaukee at all?
Yeah, definitely. Milwaukee looks good here, 4th overall. So they're a team that the ownership's a little bit too high, but not something you really need to worry about. There's probably a couple guys that are really pulling that ownership as well. Marcana leading off. Contreras is a really good catcher option, and then Adames at short. So those guys look good. I understand Milwaukee. They're not my favorite team on the slate, but they look really good. Won't be surprised in the least if they're the team that ends up winning the slate. They're not a team that I want to play with the Washingtons or Clevelands of the world, because even though that's where you start to get the ownership becomes an issue. When you're pairing those teams with the popular secondary stacks, I'm not willing to go that chalky in MLB personally.
Yeah. You want to avoid the chalk. That makes sense to me. Just avoiding the chalk there. All right. Well, let's open it up in a minute, but we should take a look at the lineup generator. We're actually looking at the NFL lineup generator is what we're supposed to be looking at today, because we have a great deal going on with the NFL lineup generator. I don't know if it makes sense to look at to pull up the NFL lineup generator on this MLB show when we've got MLB coming up. Let's just go to the MLB lineup generator, Jordan, if you don't mind. I think that makes more sense to do the MLB lineup generator for what we're actually looking at. But I just want to tell you guys, if you're interested in the NFL lineup generator, we have a deal going on right now. If you use the link in the description of this video, or it will be in chat if it's not already, it's only $9.99 for your first week currently if you use that link. So we didn't have a discount on the NFL lineup generator previously. We decided to give people a little bit of a discounted trial. So $9.99 for your first week of the lineup generator. You're going to get to use it for Showdown slates, main slates, DraftKings, FanDuel. On Showdown slates, you get to choose game scripts. So you can say, like, I think this team is going to go 6 points above the spread or their line. This team is going to go 6 point under. Both teams going to go over. Both teams going to, whatever game script you want to choose. It's a really cool tool for NFL. So make sure you check it out if you haven't already done so. Yeah, okay. Jordan put it up on the screen. Appreciate you, Jordan, for doing that. That's for the NFL lineup generator. But let's take a look at what the MLB lineup generator is showing us as well, because I'm always just curious to see what comes up when we have such kind of an interesting slate with really some top pitchers and then some various good lineups. So yeah, let's do DraftKings first. All lineup types, all stack types. And let's not lock anybody. I'm seeing a lot of the Guardians.
Yeah, they're going to be the project. Yeah.
Yep. All right, so we got to 78% Blake Snell. So lineup generator in line with you, Belman. Blake Snell, the top pitcher here. Got to a ton of the Guardians, though. Jose Ramirez, Stephen Kwan, our highest owned bats. Then we looks like it's just across the board on the top. As far as bats go, it's Nationals and it's Guardians. Not a huge surprise there. Yeah, the stacks showing the same thing. A lot of Guardians, a lot of Nationals. White Sox sneaking in there as well. It looks like we have maybe one Milwaukee stack. San Diego, I guess we'll talk about them a little bit. Seattle, Pittsburgh is some of our stacks. No real huge surprise here, though. Our highest owned bats are from the Guardians and the Nationals. We're getting to the stud pitchers. Blake Snell, Spencer Strider, our top owned pitchers. Hunter Brown in there is kind of interesting. 28% Hunter Brown surprises me a little bit. That catches me a little bit off guard. But for the most part, the bats look about kind of what I expect to get here. Does this look like what you would expect, Belman?
Yeah, more or less. No surprise. Cleveland looks really good from a like optimal points per dollar perspective.
Yep. All right, looks good. Let's take a look at FanDuel as well. Oh yeah, and I see Jordan did put the NFL lineup generator into chat. Appreciate you, Jordan. Brian Durkay just said he just got here. Who are your two favorite pitchers? So, as I recall, it's Blake Snell for you, and then it is the Diamondbacks pitcher, right? It's
Gallen, yeah.
Name? Yeah, Zach Gallen. So it's Blake Snell, Zach Gallen, but obviously you can make a case for Strider. You can make a case for Luis Castillo. Some really strong, those four in particular, really strong pitchers on this slate. All right, so on FanDuel we get to same thing. Largely the same thing. So a lot of Guardians, a lot of Nationals. You get Blake Snell in there, Spencer Strider as a couple of our top pitchers here. Yeah, doesn't look all that surprising to me. I'm guessing same for you.
Yeah, same exact for me.
Yeah, no real. We get 23% Cubs on FanDuel is a little bit interesting to me. I guess
we a lot cheaper there.
Yeah, we didn't look at pitchers specifically on FanDuel. I guess we could have done that. Maybe we'll go back and take a look because we've got time. We've got another half hour to get through the rest of the stack. So we have time to answer any questions people have, and maybe we should take a look quickly at FanDuel as well. But I think that'll do it for the lineup generator. Thank you, Jordan. Let's take a look at some pitchers on FanDuel because I skipped over them before. So on FanDuel, interesting. So on FanDuel, it's closer in terms of price. We have Spencer Strider at 11,500, Blake Snell right behind him at 11,300, Luis Castillo 10,900, and then Zach Gallen also in the double digits 10,600, and actually Nathan Eovaldi also 10,100. Guessing we're not getting to any Eovaldi on FanDuel either. But as far as the top guys go, so Strider, Snell, Castillo, Gallen, do you rank him in the same order on FanDuel, even though Snell is closer to the same price as Strider here?
I do, but it's a lot closer than it is on DraftKings. Like, I think you could really order these guys like however you want because Gallen still is the cheapest, but he's not 3,000 less than Strider like he is on DK. I think the guy that looks like I like more here than I do on DK is Castillo. Like he just
Yeah.
seems relatively, just better price here than he does on DK. Obviously he's less than Snell here than he is on DK. So, I think that playing any of these top guys like makes sense.
Do you value safety anymore on fan? Like, I feel like on FanDuel, because of the quality start bonus, like maybe like having a pitcher in a better matchup, I like it a little bit better than the guys with the strikeout's still worth a ton. So maybe it isn't a huge factor, but like Luis Castillo against Oakland, like feels pretty safe to get a quality start. Obviously nothing's guaranteed in MLB, but does that factor in for you at all? Like the quality start bonus, maybe pitchers who are just way better than the bats they're facing. Is that a bigger thing than cause we got Strider going to get a lot of strikeouts in just about every game, but maybe a little bit tougher road to get to that quality start against the lefty bats of the Phillies. Is that a factor for you at all?
Sure, at least a little bit. I don't think it's like a big something, but it's not nothing. So
yeah,
on FanDuel, as you mentioned, the strikeouts still are big, but they're not as big as they are on DK. If you're spending up for Strider here, like you need him to get a quality start here. So I think that in turn, maybe takes a notch off Strider here, but given that he's, cheaper relatively than he is on DK, I think that kind of, outweighs it. So, I do think, like I said, my order remains the same. Snell, Gallen, probably Castillo, then Strider, but it's so close with all those guys. Like, I think you could put them in any order you want.
Okay, cool. All right. I think that any other pitchers to touch on FanDuel, like, are you any cases where you're like going to cheaper pitchers here, or do you think you're still sticking to kind of the studs here?
I think you could make a case for Clark Schmidt at 7,500. He's really cheap, considering the other like everyone else around him.
Yep.
But I'm not a fan of picking on Toronto. Matter of fact, nice segue. Like Toronto is one of the offenses that I like using to get different here.
On both sites. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, it's basically the same. Like the only difference is going to be pricing. But yeah, they look basically the same on both sites to me personally.
All right. Well, let's move into the rest of this. I do want to touch on a couple of things that have been said in chat. Sotek said Eric Lindquist is not 40 years old. No frequent. Yeah, he is. He's 40 years old. Go check out Jordan Decline on Twitter. He tweeted about Eric's birthday. Jordan wouldn't say it if it weren't true. Eric is definitely 40 years old. Chris Williams, our Apple guy, says, if you saw me in person, you would think I was 27, but just turned 42. Yeah, I have the same problem. Just a baby face. Everybody always thinks that I'm way, way younger than I am. All right. Moving on, there were a couple of things I want to talk about, but I'm missing. We should continue on with the slate. All right. So tell me about your love for Toronto. Why they're one of your contrarian stacks that you like to get to. Looking at the top stacks tool, we have them at under 3% ownership. You like them. Tell me about your Toronto interest.
This is a team that, like, when they go off, they hit home runs, they run a little bit. They've got a couple really cheap bats in their lineup to balance out the expensive guys. Kevin Biggio hitting cleanup at 2,800. For my money, he might be the top value hitter on the slate. Great ballpark, a pitcher that has been susceptible to lefty power. They just match up really well for me here. Again, they've got cheap guys with upside that go with their expensive guys who obviously are good with upside. Never have a problem getting to Vlad, Bichette, Springer. And like I said, Biggio hitting cleanup, Dalton Varsho at 3K. He's come on lately. So I just like how this lineup sets up. They're not getting any ownership. Smith is a pretty good pitcher, but he's not impervious to getting hit hard, like by any means. They're not getting ownership. They're middle of the road in top stack percentage. They are coming with a little bit of leverage in terms of our top stack tool. And like I said, it's just a situation where it's not only like, do they have cheap guys at the bottom of the lineup that like are cheap and they stink? Like, I actually like cheap guys here. Varsho, Biggio specifically, and then Kirk at 3,200 at catcher. There aren't that many great hitting catchers, especially with Rutschman not on the slate.
All right. So Toronto, would you say that they are your favorite? I guess we'll do top stacks at the end of the show. No, we haven't even been doing that. We haven't been doing the three favorite pitchers, three favorite stacks like I had been doing earlier on when I was hosting shows early in there. You and I have not been doing that. Maybe we should bring that back, because I think that's a good thing, just to like give an overview of the slate, talk about three favorite bats three favorite stacks, three favorite pitchers. We'll do that at the end. See if Toronto makes it in there. We got a couple super chats that I want to touch on. Brian Durkay says, just shouting you guys out. Tools are fire. Yeah, absolutely. They are. Thank you, Brian, for the super chat and for the compliment of the tools. And then Chris Williams, our Apple guy, as always, it seems like every single show, Chris is somehow still finding people to gift memberships to YouTube memberships from Chris Williams. Appreciate you, Chris, as always, supporting the people. He did this twice. He gave out even more memberships after those initial 5. He gave out 5 more. So just by the end of NFL season, every single person here is going to have a Stochastic membership because our guys are so good in chat, just giving them out. Yeah, Balakar says we are running out. Yeah, at this point, almost everybody seems to have memberships. Appreciate you guys always gifting memberships to the chat. All right. Well, I guess I haven't even told you. I teased it a little bit that we have a great deal going on with Owner's Box. I haven't actually told you guys what that deal is. When you sign up for Owner's Box using our link, you're going to get a free week of the Stochastic Sims Max package, which is a fantastic deal. That is for NFL Sims Max. So you get to make up to 10,000 lineups in your pool. Really powerful tool. It is $60 a week generally. You're getting that for free when you sign up for Owner's Box using our link. On top of that, first deposit match up to $500. It's going to be a drip bonus. So you're not going to get all the money right away. You can't play with the money right away. You have to play through to be able to use your deposit match, but that's fantastic. And then on top of that, you get 2 free entries into contests, one of them being a $5 ticket into the Lightning lineups, which is really cool. I did it on a stream. The first time I played Lightning lineups, I decided to check it out on a stream. They just give you 3 lineups of just 3 players. So they show you 3 sets of 3 players, and you just choose which one you think is going to be the highest scoring of that group. You can double your money. You can add lineups to that as well and make more than double your money, but I've actually found it to be extremely profitable so far. It's been pretty easy to beat that game. So they gave me the one free lineup to pique my interest, and I've been kind of hooked since then. I've been doing a lot of these Lightning lineups because I think it is a very beatable game. So highly recommend checking that. And then you get another $5 contest ticket on top of that to another Owner's Box contest. So if you haven't checked out Owner's Box, highly recommend doing so for all the reasons I just gave you. Deposit match, free week of Stochastic Maxims, 2 entries into contests. On top of all of that, just overlay. Like a new site, as new sites often do, they build in a little bit of overlay to get you interested in the site. They have been majorly overlaying on their contests on Owner's Box. It is probably the first place you should be going for DFS every week until we no longer have that overlay. It's just a slam dunk, easy way to make some money, to find some EV. Is you got to attack these plus EV spots, and when you can find overlay like we have on Owner's Box currently, there is a ton of overlay. On top of that, we actually support within the Sims Max tool that you get a free week of. We support Owner's Box there, so you're playing against a lot of people who don't have advanced tools. You're going to have advanced tools right away from Stochastic. So I would check it out. If you haven't checked out Owner's Box, of course, you must be 18 plus to play. If you or somebody know has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. Just want to tell you guys a little bit about our sponsor because it really is a fantastic deal. You should sign up. But let's get back to the baseball slate. So after Toronto, any other contrarian lineups that you are super interested in here?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the expensive lineups, as I kind of alluded to before, aren't going to get a lot of love because people are going to prioritize the pitching, which is probably the smart way to play it, but doesn't mean that's going to, win tournaments today. The Dodgers specifically look really, really good against, Alex Faedo coming in for whoever's starting for them. I saw Miguel Diaz earlier. Like, they're expensive, so they're not going to get a ton of love, but our top stack tool loves them here, coming into the ton of leverage. But they're not the only team. Texas, Atlanta, Seattle, Houston, Toronto, as I mentioned, Boston, San Diego, the ownership's there, but they're right with those teams. This is definitely an MLB slate where you can go a lot of different ways with it. There are the teams that are getting the ownership, the main 3. I think you mentioned them: Cleveland, Washington, and the White Sox. Other than that, I don't think ownership's a concern anywhere.
All right. So you just feel like you get away from the chalk a little bit, and you can, but I mean, you can play anywhere, but who do you like? Who are your favorite of these top stacks? I mean, so looking at the positive leverage spots, we have, let's see, the Cubs, 3%.
There's a bunch of them.
Yeah, there are a bunch of them. So are you, if you were playing, 20, 30 lineups, do you think you would be pretty spread out across these stacks, or do you think you would be condensing to certain of these lower owned stacks?
Probably condensing just because there are so many of them. I think for me, the ones that look best are the Dodgers for sure. And then like that stack of the Cubs, Rangers, and Braves. I'm always going to put the Braves like at number one, given the upside they have on any single day. Not worried at all about Sanchez / Lorenzen. They're really expensive, like even more expensive than the Dodgers. So they're not going to get love. And anytime you can get Atlanta, like without ownership, it's always a place to be interested in. For reference, they have basically the same top stack percentage as Washington, getting a tenth of the ownership. I mean, when's the last time we saw that?
Yeah, that is pretty nuts. I mean, I will say it's probably just because of the expensive pitchers looking so good. And I mean,
right.
we do have Atlanta with 0.5% chance of being the top point per dollar stack. So is it just people? I mean, it sounds like people are kind of being funneled away from the expensive bats. So, and it sounds like that's generally the way that you want to play it too. But, do you have any interest in just like throwing a lineup out there that just uses those expensive Atlanta bats, goes to, maybe an Assad and a Rom or something like that? Any interest in playing that kind of lineup in a large?
Yeah, definitely some interest. And I will say you can make the case for the Dodgers there too. I think that they're the team that like they're not going to be, popular by any means, but most people looking to spend up will go to the Dodgers. Atlanta will truly come in very low owned in my eyes today. Like that's always intriguing.
Okay. Would you say Atlanta is the most intriguing of the under 1% owned stacks, or under, I guess that we have them at 1.3% now, under 2% owned stacks?
Yeah, for me, they are, sure.
Okay. I mean, that's not setting a really high a bar, but yeah, Atlanta definitely always kind of an interesting stack. How do you feel about, did we talk about the Dodgers? I guess you mentioned the Dodgers a little bit.
And to be fair, like that is like half the slate. Like basically half the slate has an ownership share of 2% or lower, because Cleveland specifically is pulling so much, and then Washington below them. So, I mean, yeah, there are a lot of teams not getting love today, and Atlanta's my favorite just because they're the best team. Their
right
offense is unreal. I mean, I think that at this point in the season, anyone who's questioning Atlanta, like, I mean, that's silly at this point.
Yeah, agreed. Like they've just done it so many times. They've been the top stack. I feel like they've been the top stack like 25% of slates. Like that can't be right, but like it feels like it happens so often with Atlanta. It's pretty nuts to see them not getting a ton of ownership on this slate. All right, any other stacks that you want to touch on for DraftKings? So we're just talking about. I just have DraftKings pulled up right now, and then let's talk about some FanDuel specific stacks as well. But for DraftKings, any others that you think are, we need to talk about here?
I think Texas is intriguing. Tanner Houck, he's been good recently, but Texas now back at full health. Josh Young is back. Adolis Garcia is back. Their lineup just is a lot better when those two guys are in there. On top of Seager and Semien, you add guys like Adolis Garcia and Josh Young. All of a sudden, your lineup is elite, like it was at the beginning of the year. So they're another team. Our top stack tool likes them. 6% chance of being a top stack, 2% ownership. They're right there with Atlanta for me.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about FanDuel specifically now, just for a minute. See which stacks we like from FanDuel. We've still got 13 minutes until lock, so we got plenty of time to talk about all angles here. And if you have questions in chat, feel free to shoot them at us. On FanDuel, we have Cleveland getting 20% ownership. That is pretty nuts, with a 10% chance of being the top stack, 11% chance of being the top value stack. Is that an X out for you on Cleveland? Like, would you play any Cleveland if you were playing 20 lineups, or would you X them out?
I mean, if I were playing 20 lineups, I'd probably get to some Cleveland, especially like as one-offs and stuff. But they're overowned, and they're not even like I don't even agree that they're the top stack on the board. That's stubbornness on my part, because I'm not as smart as the computers, and multiple places have them as the top stack. So they're going to score 20 runs tonight, but the ownership's there. It's way too high. It's just not a spot in MLB I'm willing to go to. Okay.
So Cleveland, not your top spot here on FanDuel. Looking at the ownership, it's similar to DraftKings. We have Yeah, we have two teams. So Washington, is Washington your top stack of the day on FanDuel?
I mean, it's Jose Urania. So until otherwise, yes. But the ownership's there already too. So like again, I'm willing to play, and you could say Cleveland in there too. I'm willing to play Washington with another low-owned team. For me, it is helpful though that Washington's half as owned as Cleveland. So just based on that, I like Washington more than Cleveland. And yeah, I think they're in a really good spot, even though they're not good.
Are there any spots that are significantly different for you on FanDuel versus DraftKings? Like any teams that stand out to you on FanDuel that you didn't have interest in, or any teams that you did have interest in on DraftKings that you're no longer interested in on FanDuel or have lesser interest?
Honestly, it looks exactly the same to me.
That's fair. I mean, you don't need to play a catcher. Does that hurt your Toronto interest at all, with Kirk being one of the few like good catchers to play? You don't need to play one. Does that tamp your interest at all? Or I mean, we've still got him at 2% in ownership. So does it change anything for you?
No, I mean, he's not even that good. He's just like fine for a catcher. So, no, that doesn't change a damn thing for me personally.
Okay. How do you feel about Boston? 2% ownership, 4% chance to be in the top stack, 4% chance to be in the top value stack against Nathan Eovaldi in Texas. Any interest there?
Yeah, definitely some interest there. I think they're amongst like a bunch of teams you can throw out there that are top stack Jewel likes. They're another team. They've got power. Eovaldi's been off since he's come back. The Rangers bullpen hasn't been good. The thing that ultimately makes me not get there is like, we know Eovaldi's a good pitcher and there are bad pitchers on this slate. So Boston's a good tournament play, but they're not like my favorite team on the slate for that reason. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Eovaldi, even if he is limited, pitches well for 4 or 5 innings.
Yep, that is a fair statement. I see a couple people. I see Jake DeWitt in chat asking about the late slate, and I know Chris Williams, our Apple guy, also likes to play the late slate. Usually sends a super chat about the late slate, but he already sent us a super chat just to tell us how great we are. So I feel like we can just on our own. Let's talk briefly about the late slate because it's maybe a little bit different. I mean, we do still have both Blake Snell and Luis Castillo and Zach Allen. We have all three of them on the late slate, along with Ryan Pepio, Alex Up. Looks like it's still a very strong slate for pitching. How would you rank the pitchers? Give me your top 3 on just the late slate. I think I know the answer.
I mean, it's basically the same. It's Snell, Gallen, and then Castillo.
That's like, why I know the answer. Nothing changed except we don't have a Strider. Yeah. So it's I guess we don't really need to get that in depth because it's the exact same. We don't have a Strider. You throw out one of the top 4, but those 3 are still a clear top 3.
There's always a case of like the raw ownership's going to be higher on Snell, so like maybe that's the reason to get away from him there. But the raw ownership's going to be higher on the other guys too. So like it all evens out. Yeah, we do have Snell at 66% ownership on the night slate, but it's also only 4 games, so the ownership kind of makes sense there. Interestingly, we have Ryan Pepio at 33% ownership on the night slate. I think that comes down because it just got announced that he's coming in after an opener.
That's a good point. So
at that price point, like I just don't think the ownership is going to remain there personally.
Yeah, Jake says any boost to Detroit since Caleb is starting. Does that make a difference for you that they have a different starter coming in there?
No, makes me usually like offenses last just because.
I mean that's what Jake said. It's harder. I agree. Like it's so hard to know what to do when you're facing an opener, just because it really opens up the possibilities for the opposing pitching staff to just attack with their best pitcher for that hitter. Yeah, it's tough. It makes me generally like offenses a little bit less when they're facing an opener.
Detroit's not a team I like on this slate. Caleb Ferguson, who's opening for them, I think, like he's not bad, and then Pepio's clearly not bad. So, like maybe on the late slate, sure. Let me see how our top stack tool likes them on the late slate. Their ownership is basically right in line, like 9% chance to be in 9% chance to be in the top stack, 9% ownership. So, yeah, I don't really see Detroit standing out basically anywhere tonight, personally.
Okay. Who are your 3 favorite stacks on the night slate alone?
On the night slate alone, the Dodgers are going to be number 1. I mean, they're getting a ton of, even more leverage than on the main slate. They have a 25% chance to be in the top stack, only 13% ownership. they're fourth in ownership on the night slate. So like this is one, even where if I had to sacrifice the pitching, I think I'd prioritize the Dodgers here. And then like, oh, okay. So I'm going to say the Dodgers, the Mariners, and then the Rockies, just because I think the leverage against Snell is so big on this slate in particular. Like we've got even like they're coming in with, they're the second best leverage team on the slate behind the Dodgers. And like the Dodgers might pick up more ownership. The Rockies will not. And again, he puts guys on base. Like, I don't think you can get there on the main slate because, like, even if Snell isn't good, it's hard to see a situation where the Rockies are the team you need. But on this slate, if Snell isn't good, like, you only have a few other offenses you need to beat. So that's why I say that, if that makes sense.
Would you change your stacking at all, given that, we're facing 3 elite pitchers on the night slate in just 4 games? So there's 8 total pitchers, 3 of them facing elite. Like, do you lower the number of bats in your primary stack at all from like 5 to 4, anything like that?
I don't personally. Like, I think you can make cases for that, but ultimately, like, you're looking for the one team that like scores more than everyone else. Sure, when you have like less games, there's less of a chance of one team like going off like that. But on the flip side of that, like when one team does, you need them. So I don't really change my stacking rules at all. That's just me personally, though.
Yeah, and we do have, the Dodgers at a 5.5 run implied total. We have Arizona 4.7, looks like. We've got, Seattle 4.4, San Diego 4.9. I'm looking in Fantasy Cruncher, so I think these are averages of a few different books, is why I'm giving kind of weird numbers here. But there are some teams that are expected to put up some runs here as well. Yeah, it's always an interesting talking point whether you should, because I agree with you. I can see both sides of it. I usually will on a shorter slate lower the number of bats that I have in a stack, but I don't know that that's necessarily the sharp way. I know a lot of pros still run a 5-man stack even on really short slate. So not sure that it's the correct approach to lower your stack numbers, but always kind of an interesting talking point at the very least. All right, so let's get back to just the main slate overall. So starting with top pitchers. Let's talk about your 3 favorite pitchers, and I think we've been over it several times, but let's reiterate your 3 favorite pitchers on the main slate.
Snell, Gallen, Castillo.
Snell, Gallen, Castillo, 3 favorite pitchers. Makes sense to me. 3 favorite stacks on the main slate.
Okay, I'm gonna go 1 chalky Washington, 1 not chalky Toronto, and then my 3rd favorite is gonna be the Dodgers. They're just really good facing bad pitching, and they're not getting ownership. So the Dodgers.
Sorry, it was Washington number 1. Who was your number 2 there?
Toronto's 2,
okay.
Dodgers 3.
All right, I was kind of anticipating that Toronto was going to be there, and for you, wasn't sure about the Dodgers there. Okay. By the way, guys, if you haven't signed up for OddsShopper, we made some huge improvements for OddsShopper recently, and we have a great deal going on right now. What is it? I've 70% off, I believe. But what is the promo code? I've got too much written here. Let's go. Promo code Let's Go, or link in the description of this video for your first month or week, whatever option you're choosing, you're going to get for 70% off using the link in the description. And we've just been like, every day feels like there's new updates to the OddsShopper tool. It just gets better and better. It uses a market-based approach. So it's looking at what the books are doing, comparing the sharper books versus other books to see like what is the best line for a given player prop. And it's telling you which lines are best at different books, looking across the industry at all the different books, using a market-based approach. Really fantastic way to look at things, because we have a large sample size of figuring out which books are the sharpest. Highly recommend checking out OddsShopper if you have sports betting legal in the state, or even if you don't. We have the for the pick'em sites for your prize picks, your underdog, those kind of sites. You can still use our OddsShopper tool for that, and you can get it again for 70% off using the link in the description of this video if you haven't already done so. Just wanted to give a quick shout out there, because really the tools just improve every single day. Really powerful tools there at OddsShopper. All right, so we've given 3 favorite stacks, 3 favorite pitchers. I think it is time for us to give some dong picks. I have not pulled up my favorite dong picks yet, so I'll let you go first. Do you have a dong pick at the ready?
I'm going to go Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Vlad. I mean, it makes sense.
He's
love
got to be
yourself
decently high.
some Blue Jays. Yeah, let me see. And of course, my tool here.
Yeah.
My very proprietary. Nobody else has it.
Yeah.
We have Vlad with a 26% chance of hitting a home run. He is fifth on the board. And there's no real separation between Vlad and the guys higher than him. 26% chance, as I said, for Vlad. Our highest bat is just 28%. And I'm going to go there.
I know who it is.
You do know who it is?
I'm going to guess because it's basically this guy every time, Matt Olson.
Matt Olson is number 2. So you were right. You were very close. 27.5% chance for Matt Olson. JD Martinez is going to be my home run pick. I've got him with a 28% chance of hitting a home run in the top batters duel. So
he hit 2 yesterday.
Did he really hit 2? I mean, I was not paying attention to baseball yesterday. I was paying too much attention to the 2 football games. Man, 2 home runs. Guy's a beast. I'm going to count on him hitting another one today against Alex Vita. So I'm going JD Martinez. You're going to Vlad Guerrero, both with a 26% chance or greater chance of hitting a home run. So we're taking 2 of the best on the board. All right. Jake DeWitt says, can't go an entire show without Evan fucking Carter. I haven't mentioned Evan Carter.
Oh,
so,
no.
Yeah. Are we playing Evan Carter today? I don't know anything.
This got brought up This
Okay.
got brought up on our show last week too.
I know
the guy's been bugging Engelman about it.
Yeah.
He's only in play if you're stacking the Rangers. He's a 9-hole hitter at home. Nothing's changed.
All right. Bugging. No pun intended there, right? He's been bugging Engelman.
Yeah.
All right. That'll do it for the show. I still have not watched Apocalypto, so can't give you any kind of review on Apocalypto. Apologies if you guys were waiting for an Apocalypto review. I'll get to it at some point. All right. Bugboy wants to know what's Evan Carter's chances of hitting home. I am going to give you that because it'll be funny to see. All right.
Okay. That makes more sense at least.
Do you have any final thoughts?
Not really. I will just say lastly, like looking at our ownership, Cleveland is just, even Washington, they're getting ownership, but it's not nearly what Cleveland's getting. So I like that at least. Well, what they got, because I think that game locked.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Lock has come and gone. Evan Carter, we have with an 8% chance of hitting a home run tonight, if you wanted to know. So 8% chance for Evan Carter to hit a home run. That's going to do it for this show. Thank you, Belman. Thank you guys for hanging out with us for the past hour. Good luck tonight. Let's win some money. Hit that like button if you haven't already done so. Good luck.